got a meeting on the 17th in Vancouver, Brian.
17th?
Yeah. Fiscal, for government.
Oh, okay.
We can go down and party at the Yale. Is the Yale still going down there? Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Huh?
It was closed for quite a while for renovations. Open again.
That is the late Mup's favorite spot.
Oh, that's it?
It's blues, lots of blues music in there.
I first go down to Vancouver in the 60s. These hotels, different culture.
Yeah.
I go to a different hotel each night.
Oh,
I don't know, Mexicans or Spanish, you get on the table, they
Oh,
dance, full dress. Really enjoy the old days.
hmm.
Used to be really nice on Grand. Yeah. Really ugly now. You know, too much drugs, eh? Hard drugs.
No steroids suspected.
No, no.
Vancouver's been ugly from the high-rise. Oh, yeah, yeah.
These to you. Pass them on, you should go email it.
Okay. Thanks. We seem to get sigurmana kabul to some this mama here tun san one we say Lewis Hunt Skinner. And thank you for your patience, Troy, and thank you for waiting, and welcome to the meeting today, and certainly appreciate your presence and coming to listen to our views and concerns, and definitely hear your concerns also. So we have the agenda in front of us. Samuel did the opening prayer. Thank you, Samuel. And so we got review the agenda. So we're doing that now. Review November 8th meeting notes. Number 4, Gitxsan Watershed Authorities letter of response dated November 27th, 2019. Number 5, Flynn Road, Troy Lardon, Department Head, Fish and Wildlife, Fisheries Regulation website, legislation with regard to UNDRIP, letter of response November 27th, 2019. I believe you're doing a 25-minute presentation to us today.
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint?
Yeah, I don't see a.
We have a
so maybe I'll
sheet,
skip that.
yeah.
Have one.
We'll
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Okay, we got some humor here. First thing in the morning. But we're prepared, I'll tell you. Thank you, Troy. Number 6, jurisdiction, Anad, access to 2021 season. Ayok, not play with fish, not waste fish. Number 7, signage, update provided by Brian Williams. Number 8, crisis management team, terms of reference, commitment from all parties, and other. And the next meeting will be decided later, January 2020, and a closing prayer. Do we have any other additions to the agenda? I think we've got a fairly full agenda. So we will move on, and that's the agenda. So we'll review the minutes or the notes on the November 8th, meeting notes. Chairperson Brian Williams, recording Elaine Samson, attending Brian Williams, Vernon Smith, Gordon Sebastian, Robert Campbell, Chaz Ware, Robin Alexander, Norman Moore, and Troy Larden, Flynn Ward. Absent, Art Wilson, Federal Representative, and a Federal Representative. Opening prayer, Vernon Smith. We reviewed the agenda, review October 10th, 2019 meeting notes. Review process, Gordon presents an overall picture of where CMT is at today. Jurisdiction, crisis management team, Anat, Ayok, do not play with fish, do not waste, need permission, Flinro, Troy Larden, head fish and wildlife discussion, touching on issues, issuing permits, licenses during low stock and water levels, letter to RCMP, local and national policy sections that support jurisdiction. Norman Moore, Brian Williams, and Gordon Sebastian provide an overview of the rights and reconciliation that support the Gitxsan jurisdiction. Signage, Brian Williams provides an update. Roger Rietsema is working on the wording. Last met with him to discuss in October 2019. Crisis management team, terms of reference review, commitments. Gitxsan government members expressed their concerns regarding commitment from federal and provincial government. Next meeting date, December 5th, 2019. Closing prayer, Vernon Smith. Any corrections, errors? I think the word Ayok is a little, got too many letters in there. Anything to add to the minutes, or is it, or the notes, I should call them at this point? If the notes are fine, we will move on. If we believe we've captured everything in there. I see a nod. Thank you. Gitxsan Watershed Authorities letter of response dated November 27th. Which was just handed out. A response, or letter response, or the letter response dated November 27th from GWA. You want to cover that, Gordon?
You have a copy of that?
Yeah, it was included in the agenda.
All right, the letter November 27th was provided to the Gitxsan government, and it referred to a letter that I used to have that we sent on the August 21st. Do you have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we were basically concerned on August 21st with two situations. Mainly the joint media release that was done by what was termed Gitxsan, Wet'suwet'en, Lake Babi Nation, and we were concerned that release at that time placed the Gitxsan government in a subordinate position to DFO. And we were concerned that the public would be confused when that media release was asking DFO to close the recreational fishing when the Gitxsan government had already done so. for 2 years. So that's the letter that GWA is answering to. And also we were concerned that DFO had closed the fisheries on the river on the part of the 2019 season, and they claimed that there was consultation with the Gitxsan in their release, and the Gitxsan government had not had any consultation with DFO. So those two issues were addressed on the letter dated November 27th from GWA, and it was a very positive letter. GWA does not feel there is any conflict of interest between the Department of Fisheries and with the Gitxsan hereditary chiefs, but they're concerned that when you read the letter on November 27th, it says, we wholeheartedly agree the hereditary chiefs have the authority to close their territories to recreational fishing. With the press release that we were concerned about, with the press release, GWA was dealing with the reality that despite the direction of the hereditary chiefs governance group, recreational fishers continued to fish in the territories using licenses issued by the Crown. So I suppose they were concerned that the message wasn't getting out. However, they did the unnecessary step of asking DFO to close the fisheries. And we're not too sure. The confusion is do they mean the whole watershed? I suppose they mean from the Gitxsan, the Wet'suwet'en, Lake Babine portion of the watershed, not the Kitsalas and Kitsilkalem and the coastal areas. So as a result now, there's this letter that's been sent out, fresh copy that you have now, and that's thanking GWA for their letter, and we take the letter as notification that anglers and recreational fishers continue to fish on that of various head chiefs. Would you please provide us with the time, date, and names of the perpetrators, as well as the names of anyone from GWA that may have witnessed these acts? Please indicate where on the Skeena River and whose and that these perpetrators violated. We're pleased to inform you that many anglers and recreational fishers respectfully would leave on request on many areas of the Skeena watershed. And we need more information and support from GWA on these trespassing activities. Lastly, please indicate how many licenses and permits, if any, that you are aware of that were issued by the Crown for the season 2019. We expect you'll be probably addressing some of that, or most of it. And then we indicated our concern about that press release last summer that placed the Gitxsan government in a subordinate position with DFO and confused the public on Gitxsan government's authority to close its jurisdiction to permits and licenses issued to anglers. At this point, I'd like to clarify for the province that the issue that we have with the permits and licenses is that first, it does not authorize trespass on RNAT, and secondly, the recreational fishermen catch and release, and the government calls it non-retention. And it was reported to this table that 26% of the fish die that are caught and released by recreational fishermen. And the Gitxsan ayok is that you do not play with fish, and that you do not waste the fish. So we feel that there's a lot of mortality rate is unnecessary, and the whole idea of recreational fishermen is to play with the fish, and that is contrary to our ayok as well. So we're asking to work with GWA, and we feel that we're starting to focus on a good relationship. So this letter has gone out today, and you have a copy of it to see what it is we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. So how about this?
Can I ask Troy, who monitors the fishing anglers? Since the government issued license permits, who monitors? What are they doing? How many fish they're catching? We never got no statistics.
So, that would be a very specific to a project or a watershed or meeting some type of objective that we've established, within the fisheries team. If we're looking at monitoring steelhead anglers as an example, we might introduce a creel survey or some level of interview process that we can get an understanding of use and catch per unit effort and hours on the river. But at this point, there has been no, since 2014, while we did do a creel survey in 2013, 2014, and 2015, and those results are published on our website, and they were designed to monitor the regulation changes that were brought forward by the Quality Waters process that was initiated in 2010 and closed in 2012. But at this point in time, since 2015, we have not done any angler monitoring on the Skeena.
Well, we need an answer for that, because we don't know what's happening.
Right.
So it's up to the village to issue license permits to do that. And we need numbers, statistics, the facts. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. Chaz?
No, he answered my question as he was talking.
Okay.
I was just reading the updated press release on the ministry's website, for
Yeah.
the Skeena region.
You're gonna steal my thunder?
Is that's what you're presenting on? I'll save it then.
All right.
Yeah, I'll save it, sorry.
No worries, Chaz. I would actually like to speak to Gordon's quote of 26% mortality on catch and release fishing. The province doesn't have any data that represents that particular number. We've completed surveys and we've completed scientific tests that show that mortality, and it's different based on the angling methods that take place, the time of year, the conditions that are within the watershed. But they range anywhere from 2 to 10%. We've never experienced a 26% mortality on any of the catch and release activities that we have actually studied.
What are your techniques to revive them, and how do you know, like, each angler can revive a fish?
Right, and so we've published best management practices within the hunting or the fishing regulations that say, handling fish and catch and release techniques that provide the best survivability for those fish.
I'd say one out of 10 would never survive, because I've seen anglers all my life growing up, and the struggle that the fish have all the way to the shore, back up, and the hook in their mouth. And I've seen some of the anglers trying to revive them, and they go belly up, and there they go down the river. Wow.
Agreed.
What a beautiful fish that was wasted.
So in speaking to your 1 in 10, that's 10%. It certainly isn't 26%.
But that's just a small portion
Agreed.
of a very small place.
It is sort of associated with the press release, but it's on this topic. So this thing, and it was stated on the previous version, fisheries management decisions are made on best available science with conservation and sustainability, top priority of all, but food, First Nations food, social, ceremonial needs, and recreational opportunities. So, in the last 5 years, we've experienced not quite normal or typical weather patterns around here, i.e. multiple years of major droughts. In all those years of major droughts, did the province close recreational fishing when the water temperatures were exceeding 20 degrees in most of our major salmon streams and steelhead streams?
Not in the Skeena.
Yeah.
So we have experienced temperature closures in other jurisdictions. The Vancouver Island has some, the Kootenays had some, the Caribou had some, and the Thompson Okanagan had some. The province moved forward last year with a very robust monitoring program with the installation of some data loggers and some temperature monitors around different watersheds within the Skeena. And we created a drought and temperature threshold document which would trigger perhaps management direction or management decisions around recreational fishing opportunity and closures. And that was presented to headquarters, and we believe that we're going to have those opportunities this year coming up. The reason, I guess, for not pursuing those in the past was that we didn't have supporting data, and you know, if you move forward with a closure without data to support it, for instance, robust temperature activities that are real time, then you risk losing a lot of credibility and moving those forward in the future. So it was thought that we would exercise a very precautionary approach and collect some background and some baseline data, and then move forward from there. So you can expect that, you know, in 2020, there's a better data set available to us to make real-time management decisions, and if the conditions are warranted, we would likely be closing some opportunities to recreational anglers in several watersheds around the Skeena.
We have Vernon and then Gordon.
Yeah, I was going to address the 2 to 10% that you guys have used in your study. I grew along the river, and this is a young child used to play along the river, and he watched these minnows along the river. And the more recreational fishermen that appeared along the Skeena, the less minnows we see. And right now we don't see any more minnows. We used to grab them. They told us if you swallow it alive, you'll be a good fish, good swimmer. Most of us almost drowned. But my point is, there's way too many anglers along the beach, along the river, and they disturb these little minnows. That's their habitat. They destroy their habitat. So I don't know if you guys included that in your studies. If you include that in your studies, then it goes up to 26% of the damage that's done to the fish.
Thank you. Could I address that? Yeah. No, we have not included that kind of analysis in any of our study.
Right now, it'd be lucky to see what minnows along the beach.
Gordon?
Yeah. Troy, what's the time period? I missed it, that you see this 2%, 10% mortality rate. What's the time period, 1965?
Our most recent study was done in 2018, and that was done by the University of Alberta and or maybe it was a Canadian university and an American university that were partnered on it. Mark Beer, our fisheries biologist, played a big role in providing, providing literature and expertise to that study.
We have, in the public, notice that went out, released by a professor from Simon Fraser. He said that since 1912, 73% of the stocks have disappeared. And, so if you're saying 2 to 10%, so what's left on the Skeena? That report mentioned that the Skeena stocks have been reduced by 72%, 73%. And then if you add your 10%, that's 83%. So that leaves 17% of the actual stocks in our lifetime that have disappeared. So you can see, when you start dealing with the data, and I think the government admitted they only got data as far back as 1965. So when you start dealing with the data and start looking at the percentages, we're left with 17% of the stock after all this wastage and disappearance of the stock under the government's management. So we feel that 26% wastage mortality rate that we received come from the actual group of licensees that indicated to us what they view as their loss and wastage. So I think there's a lot of work needs to be done, and you're going to need a lot of help with your research. But we don't feel that we can rely on it at this point, given the other points and the other information we have. Thank you.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
So I would suggest that the mortalities you quoted, Gordon, are not additive. That the losses of 70% represent the total population, and that would likely be inclusive of mortality associated with recreational catch and release angling. The reference to 26% mortality from industrial activities or
From licensees.
from licensed fishers. So
Yes.
I'm suggesting these are commercial fishers?
No,
No?
on the river.
On the river?
Yeah.
And like I don't, I'm not sure where the licensees comes from. Can you define that?
On the Skeena River,
So a recreational angler?
yes.
A licensed recreational angler? Okay, those numbers are
Yeah, these are
unheard
the
of by
actual
me.
fishermen.
Yeah.
They're not a professor in Alberta.
Mhm.
These are actual fishermen that provide that.
Okay, well, I'm not aware of published data that suggests that it's 26% catch and release mortality.
We're aware of it.
Okay, I'd be happy to read it if you'd like to share it. And incorporate it into our management decisions.
That's why we're here.
Thank you.
Robin and then Norman.
I would like to express Vernon's, the same thing, when I was a kid, I used to see the minnows there too, and the more the anglers come to recreational and sport fishing, they disturb the whole walking where they're spawning. As I seen more recreational anglers, then they all started disappearing. So that's double catch and release and disturbing the water with the boat launches and all that. But I've seen a real dramatic decline in the minnows too. So, when we go out fishing, we only catch what we eat and then leave the river alone.
Thanks, Robin. Norman?
Okay, regardless of the numbers, we don't live by numbers. We have laws that dictate how we live on the land. And the basic how we created our laws is through respect. And respect for all the animals, all the inanimate objects around us. And we were imbued with this, with these teachings ever since we were small. And when you read the fisheries, they have recreational and sports fishermen. Just the words themselves, recreational and sports, points to the fact that this is a sport. To us, we use this fish for our livelihood to sustain us. When we look at what the white man does, they are playing with the fish, irregardless of numbers, irregardless of how people view it. They are playing with fish. When they catch them and release them, that's playing with fish. So this has to stop, and that's why we're here, and that's why you're here, to coordinate our efforts. But right now we're taking the stand that we have the jurisdiction on the rivers and that our laws take precedence.
Thank you, Norman. And Robert?
Just a short comment regarding that. Catch and release. How many times do you catch a fish with hooks in their mouth and then there's a bite? It's the same thing when they done it down the coast. They set aside certain fish, I think it was coho. How long does it take the fish to survive without water? That didn't work. The same thing with catch and release. And to go on the minnow thing like Vernon and Robin said, there's no more bears beside the river because there's no fish. It's just to add on what they said, there's no minnows. I agree with that. I just wanted to point that out. Having been hooked and released so many times, how can they survive with that? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. No other comments? Then we will jump right into Troy's presentation.
Okay. Well, it's
Do you need a PowerPoint?
no, not at all.
You do have one.
I was just pulling on Brian's chain there a little bit.
Oh, I took you serious.
So when you put me on the spot for a 45-minute presentation, I can tell you it's not going to be 45 minutes.
25.
Well, I'd say maybe 10 at the most.
Okay.
So at the last meeting, the last crisis management team meeting that I attended, I left with a couple of action points from the table here. Okay. I left with a couple of action points from the table here, and one of them was to revisit the language on the important notice to anglers on the Skeena River watershed that BC published on their website. The chiefs identified some displeasure with one, not being consulted on the language, and 2 with the final language that was actually published. One of the things that was a problem was the last sentence on the notice, which reads, "If an angler experiences conflict, please avoid confrontation. Public safety is first priority, and if safety concerns exist, please call the RCMP." It was identified during the meeting that there was no conflict on the river last year, and this language actually posed some opportunity to escalate or maybe introduce conflict. I agreed with that. I took that back to my executive, and they have since removed that sentence from the notice. It has been removed and reposted, and maybe Chaz was actually going to speak to that, but that sentence has been removed. The reason that was introduced during the meeting was, one, there was no conflict, and 2, it didn't necessarily address the perceived, or maybe it wasn't perceived, but it didn't identify the potential for safety of the Gitxsan members. It was only addressing the recreational angler, and we thought maybe that was an omission on our part. So by removing that language altogether, I think we've addressed that point. Secondly, there was another sentence in there that said, "Please respect First Nations rights and perspective and seek permission before crossing Indian Reserve lands." And the chiefs brought it to my attention that it's not just the Indian Reserve lands that they have a problem with, it's the actual Gitxsan territory. And we did, within the notice, publish a map of the Gitxsan territory, and it was requested by the chiefs that we introduce that map as the area that the angler should be seeking permission to cross or to be on. I have presented that to my executive, and they're looking at that language as we speak. We had a conference call on it on Monday this week, and they are seriously considering either deleting that paragraph altogether or altering that paragraph to better meet the requests of the Gitxsan chiefs. A couple of things that I have to take back to them after this meeting is, if we are publishing an opportunity for permissions to enter Gitxsan territory, we also need to publish phone numbers or a way to actually achieve that permission. Because if the recreational angler, if the mushroom picker, or if the hunter or whoever wants to access the territory, how do they actually get permission? It's not good enough just to say get permission. We also must facilitate that permission by publishing numbers or websites or anything. And I'll bring your attention to the hunting regulations, where Skeena has published several notices to hunters within the hunting regulations for different First Nations groups. Casca as an example, and they've identified a website or a website to actually look at and seek permission. And the TRT have actually published phone numbers and contact names that we have brought forward for permissions. Most of those are for things like sharing meat and sharing or trying to eliminate waste of animals. So I leave it with the Gitxsan chiefs to bring forward me a list of names or a single contact number or something that we can maybe put in the language of the notice for the anglers to actually seek permission. I guess look forward to seeing, or maybe even introducing, new language for you guys to approve within the notice for us to actually meet that concern that you brought forward last meeting.
Vernon had a question before you proceed.
Yeah. In regards to asking permissions and you're asking for phone numbers, our laws are pretty complex. And I wouldn't want, besides that, our office here is being bashed by our own people for giving out permissions and stuff like that. They think we're giving out permissions from this office.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't done that. I don't think this office has done that, giving permissions to loggers or whatever. The chiefs have accused this office for a number of years. The information that's out there is not true. So asking for a phone number from us, that gives an avenue for our people to bash us again,
Mm-hmm.
if we do that.
Right.
So, like, I'm at, if the angler wants to fish in a certain spot, then maybe request whose
House.
an ad is at.
Right.
And then the office could direct them who owns it and ad,
Yeah.
instead of giving permission from here.
Right, and that's perfectly acceptable on the province side, but there needs to at least be a number to contact
For them to actually get that information or receive that permission. And even if there is no permission granted, at least they're looking, we're looking to seek that permission, right? And I do understand the need to provide those permissions based on the house, right? It's the house that gives the permission, it's not a body representing the house.
Please go ahead. Chaz? We have Chaz, then Norman, then Robert.
Just looking at the updated notice, it's speaking to the 2019-2020 season. So this includes next year.
Well, no, so that notice would actually end March 2020. But rest assured that it would probably be extended into the next season. And I believe the Gitxsan have made it quite clear that the fishing notice does extend into the 2020-2021 season.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the other one was it says any changes or updates will be posted here, and was there supposed to be a link there or something in the press release? It's the third or fourth paragraph. Until further notice, angling license sold by the province for freshwater species remain valid.
Yep.
Any changes or updates will be posted here.
To the fishery. Yeah, that is a quick link. Yeah. Is it not working?
Oh, there's nothing in the notice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there is on my printed copy, it does have a quick link.
I'm on the website right now and it's
Okay.
not here. There's a link at the bottom. Anyways, that just,
Okay.
it just
I
seemed
can flag
incomplete.
that for Steve. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think you're gonna get permission to fish on our territories. We're here as a crisis management team to address the fact that there are no fish. And this is due to mismanagement by the government. And I say government, I include DFO. We, and when I say our fish, I mean it is our fish. They spawn on our territories, they go down to the ocean, they mature, they come back up to where they spawned, and they do the cycle again. This is our fish. irregardless of what anybody thinks, whether they say nobody owns a fish. No, the truth is, this is our fish. They came from our territories and they come back. And the reason why they come back is they come back to feed us. We have a relationship with nature where it's a give and take. So these are going to be this is going to be a hard concept to accept by the white man, because but that is what we are saying. The fish is ours, and it's being depleted by mismanagement.
Robert? Yeah, regarding the first of the conflict. No conflict in 2019. And what we're looking at is the future. This is my opinion. I don't know about other people. But we're looking at the RCMP that we have the same rights as any other citizen in Canada for protection. 2019 is practically over. So we're looking in the future for this conflict. We have the right for protection from the RCMP.
Absolutely.
That's what we're stating. And then according to what you just mentioned, right now we're dealing with fish, but we do have jurisdiction on their territory. We'll get to the hunting, the logging, etc. as we go along. So this is a start. Like you heard, our laws are really complex. And to issue phone numbers for contact, that's a potential for conflict itself. That somebody's going to phone you and start harassing you or threatening you. So basically what we're saying, our jurisdiction in the Skeena, Lahyip, in the river, is what we're talking about. Nobody else. Just the Gitxsan territory, the river, the fish. So that's where we're at right now. If you issue a whole bunch of phone numbers, there'll be mass confusion. And like I said, conflict for threats and whatever.
And that's why I invite the chiefs to work with the province to get the right wording in there that really represents, your issues and how we can accomplish that objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Robert, Gordon?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, there's two things which you mentioned which are very positive. The idea about the licensee and the permit holders need to know who to talk to and to which can act. And then the concerns that the Gitxsan have on both sides of the issue of access. We are concerned about the management of the fish, and we can show how questionable the data that everybody relies on, including us, that we have to start figuring out what we're going to rely on in terms of the stocks and the management of the stocks. And we have concern about the actual spawning beds where the anglers, they walk along and park their boats, do various things there. And then the person seeking access, we have, there's a percentage of them that are aggressive and which includes being a racist and things like that. And we have an act that are close to the highway. We're concerned about the Highway of Tears. Since 1971, we've lost 5 people that are near the rivers. And people that have been that disappeared, we've never heard from since, people that have lost their lives. So we have a lot of concerns. So the idea I'm getting at is that you appoint a tech person that we would work with, if that be you or someone that could actually just sit down. We work with the maps, we work with the areas, and which chiefs are concerned, and then we have to talk with those chiefs because we don't have the authority. It's those chiefs in each of those areas that have the authority. And a lot of those enact are quite unprotected. Within the last month, we've had one enact burnt to the ground. We don't know if that was hunters, sports fishermen, opposing nations, or dispute over Lahib, or people within, right in our own community. We don't know who did that. So we do have concerns, and generally the public has been very respectful. My wife's fishing site, they would ask permission. Some would actually fish first and then ask permission while they're still standing there. And they would leave. And the ones that would ask ahead of time would say, okay, I'll have to go to Kitimat. So these people are still in the system and still accessing their privilege to fish. So we definitely need to have a tech person. We have Gitxsan Environmental Services that has a number of staff. So we can just get the people down to actually put down on the maps what it is we're dealing with here. And you actually indicate if you can, because you issue these licenses and those people can go wherever they want in the province. So we can figure out a way to earmark where they're going. If they're going to the Gigani portion of the river or the Gates portion, we'll need to set up an agreement between us, an MOU or something like that, just so we're very certain how we're going to start addressing that. I don't believe we're going to get to the permission stage probably 2 or 3 years yet. Then we'll actually start getting to the permission. Because these issues of aggressive people, the Highway of Tears issue, which goes all along the Skinner and Baltic River, the missing and murdered women, cause a lot of concern for families. So there are a lot of issues that we have to deal with in the meantime before we get to that actual point. So I believe if we can sit down, you appoint someone to start working with the data, we'll have our group, which is ready to do that now. And that might be a way to address that. Thank you.
For the record, our minister has identified that person to be me. I am the tech person. Okay?
Good to hear.
You got 20 more minutes.
Okay. Well, so there's a point here around legislation with regard to UNDRIP. I'm prepared for that. I didn't know that was on the agenda. I don't know a whole lot about the legislation. It's provincial legislation. It received assent last week in the legislature, and the province is obviously committed to implementing it. There was some information released from our minister. Actually, it was our deputy minister, John Allen, not too I believe it was earlier this week, saying that we are going to publish some objectives within the Ministry of Flynn and you know, to kind of stand by. Our, what is it, Jeff Recknell, who is our director, has identified that there are individuals that will be appointed as primary contacts for the implementation of UNDRIP, and the contact for Gitxsan is going to be Aaron Trowbridge.
How you spell it?
Trowbridge, Trobridge. Aaron? Yeah. I believe Aaron's worked with you folks in the past, and you may know him, but he's going to,
I've met him.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's going to familiarize himself with all things Gitxsan, and as it relates to the implementation of the new, it's called UNDRIPA, I guess, because it's the, it finishes with ACT, yeah, that's right. So, that's his, I guess, new responsibility.
And that's Aaron?
Aaron, yeah, Aaron.
Does he have a title?
He is, I believe he's the senior manager in First Nations Relations section.
And that's Flynn Road.
Of Flynn Road, yeah. And he works out of the Skeena office in Smithers. And I can follow up with contact information for Aaron if you guys want. Should I put that as my action point?
Sure.
Is he gonna be at the table here?
No. Yeah, the implementation of UNDRIP is probably much bigger than just the CMT, the crisis management team, right?
Well, again, I think that we could be used as a case study.
Absolutely, absolutely, but, you know, recognizing that it is just one portion of the implementation of UNDRIP.
Mhm.
Yep.
You're talking about traditional form of government? Is that what you're talking about? You're calling the Gitxsan, whereas other ones are banned and dead?
Right. You know, like I said, I can't really speak to how they're going to implement the UNDRIP Act, but, you know, I think there's opportunity to be creative.
As long as they're creative. With us.
Right.
15 more minutes.
And then, okay, and then the letter of response, November 27th, 2019.
Yes.
Okay, that letter was from, and it's included in your package. Let's see, it is item number 2A. That's right. This letter was crafted by Jeff Recknell, who's our regional executive director, responsible for the Skeena region. And it was in response to your letter that you submitted on November 4th, looking for commitment from the province to participate in the CMT. This confirms my commitment to act as the technical lead for the province. And it also makes reference to the Gitxsan Nation and the Environmental Stewardship Initiative and the work, you know, the valuable work that they're doing with respect to monitoring different values on the land base, fisheries being one of them. And it also identifies, the lack of jurisdiction that BC has on the management of salmon resources. So encourages the Gitxsan to confirm Canada as the representative for salmon management. And I'm open to answer any questions if I can on the letter. First of all, I'd like to hear, sorry, Jess, first of all, if I could, I'd like to hear if this letter is a satisfactory response to the Gitxsan.
I think the comments are going to be coming from the letter.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so it'll be addressed
Yeah.
through the letter.
So it references environmental stewardship initiative and the watershed facilitators. And it feels to me like you're indicating, or Jeff is indicating, that the environmental stewardship initiative and the watershed facilitator process is somehow tied together.
No, I don't think so. I think there are two separate entities that he's suggesting have valuable resource information that you can access.
so I have a couple of questions on the letter. I want to make a comment. I kind of wear those hats,
Okay.
and so the environmental stewardship initiative is not related to the work that we're doing. There is a portion of fisheries that is being worked in with the SIAM, but that's out of the Office of the Wet'suwet'en. We're not currently doing work on any of the fisheries at this point. The reference to a relevant Gitxsan watershed facilitator is again another area that needs to be corrected, because the Gitxsan watershed facility, there are facilitators for each watershed, but they are not a part of the ANAT system that we're discussing currently. There are resources that we have within the Gitxsan, but they're not related to this project. The ESI doesn't have input into the work that the chiefs that are working on, like the CMP that are working on this project today. Nor do the Gitxsan watershed facilitators have input. They are leading each watershed and a liaison worker for each of the watersheds that we have. So I'm not sure where Jeff is coming from here, and
Okay.
how he is suggesting that we access information through these projects.
Yeah, like I totally thank you for that, Brian. That was really good. It's like the ESI is a collaboration between 10 Upper Skeena nations in our region, in our regional forum, in the province. And we're collaborating, working together, and the province could attest that just like our nation, we're large, we're complex, we've got a lot of moving parts, and that if I was to go to the province ministry, BCTS, or the Environmental Assessment Office and say, don't you know what we're doing at the ESI table? You're part of the province. They don't know. It's not inseminated out. The province has got an end date for us that is March 15th, 2021. So there's no certainty that this collaboration is even going to move forward. Yeah, and to the point around fisheries management, and fish habitat assessment monitoring protocols. We have collaborated to the point where we have draft assessment protocols. We're not at the point where we're collaboratively collecting data together. So the nation data that we have collected has focused on moose. Yeah. And just one more point is that this tries to say that the CMT is only focused on salmon management, and that is 100% not the case.
Right.
We've said over and over fish. Fish includes everything in the river, including the sculpins. We have great concerns around steelhead. The fact that we've had multiple drought years in a row and recreational fishermen have continued to beat up the steelhead is very concerning. I'm concerned that the data that you have on survival rates don't capture the weather conditions that we're encountering right now. So meaning the river's low and the water's temperatures are high. You go out and catch and release that fish, those statistics that you're referencing are null and void. That mortality rate is way higher, guaranteed. And that's our concern. And you also mentioned of 1 year of monitoring data to make informed decisions. I know for a fact you need multiple years of data to make informed decisions.
Absolutely.
Yep.
There's something wrong, there's something in there. Like both copies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What you did?
Did you catch my cop?
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
Yeah.
So the, I would suggest that the reference to the ESI was one, understanding that it is a partnership, and you know, there are many nations involved. You know, there's Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en and Lake Babine and I believe Burns Lake. Yeah, exactly. So it is, you know, understood. It is a partnership, and I believe Jeff's reference there was that it's a source of potential information that this body can access.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
represent the technical
That's
aspects.
good. Okay. Speaking to the salmon part that you said at the end there, yeah, we know. You know, we know that this is about fish. However, I think what Jeff is trying to point out is that our jurisdiction on salmon is, you know, absent. We don't have one.
No, we don't.
And so, you know, we're prepared to deal with fish that we have jurisdiction on, and we know that there is, you know, concerns around steelhead, trout, and char, and, you know, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you out and manage the province's component there.
In our territories, it's primarily steelhead fishing
Yeah.
from the recreational fishermen.
Yeah,
When
oh,
we're
absolutely.
talking salmon, they're typically downstream of our territories.
Yeah. Okay.
Gordon?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I called Jeff's office this morning, spoke to Bonnie, the administrator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bonnie Zemanchek.
Yeah, and I indicated that maybe Jeff might want to rephrase this paragraph. So she's gonna get that message to him.
Okay. Which paragraph is that, Gordon?
That's the third paragraph on the letter dated November 22nd.
The one beginning, I also encourage you?
Yes.
Okay,
That's all.
okay.
Thanks.
So there's another comment that we concerned about in the last sentence on page 2. In the interim, I fully support the continuation of the work led by MER to increase public understanding and education regarding the traditional Gitxsan Anat. We kind of believe that it's, as an owner of one of the Anats, it is our Wilkes responsibility to be managing our site,
Mm-hmm.
not MER.
Mm-hmm. I would like to speak
Yes.
to that. So that reference is to the pilot project that we talked about, and we brought it up last meeting, at the last crisis management team meeting here, where we were speaking to the wording, the potential wording and the signage that's going up around some of the annats.
Yes.
And I think one of my, well, I don't think, I know that one of my comments was that let's go beyond the angler in that information and make it more of an educational opportunity for all parties who are going to be accessing the annat. And I think this is just, you know, of course, the MER, the representative for that is Roger Rietzma,
Yeah.
and he's assisting with the language development and helping the chiefs of the different annats kind of develop, you know, wording that is suitable to provide that educational opportunity. That's what I believe Jeff's reference is, that he fully supports that, would like to see that pilot move forward.
Yeah, you know the wording today is playing with fish is against our law,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to take into consideration your customers purchase these permits, and how are we gonna reconcile that?
Right.
So those are the type of wording that we see that will go on there, and we don't believe we wanna see that. We wanna see something like that. So that's what we're sort of, we're not sure how that will be reconciled yet at this point.
Right. But those are discussions, ongoing discussions that are taking place to move that forward.
Right.
That's all I have, Brian.
You still got
Although
10 more
did-
minutes.
I know, so you asked earlier about other topics.
Yes.
I understand that there's a ministers' meeting on the 13th of the crisis management team is gonna be meeting with Doug Donaldson
Yes.
on the 13th. And if you wanted me to prepare my minister for that meeting and you have topics specific that you want me to prepare him for, I'd be happy to take that back.
That would be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Did you want to disclose those topics here, or did you want to send them to me?
Well, I think you covered some of it, if I may.
Yes,
Okay.
recorded.
Thanks. I made my note here. You mentioned, the minister will be appointing Aaron Trowbridge, and that's what we were,
It was actually, it wasn't the minister appointing Aaron Trowbridge, it was our director,
Oh,
Jeff
Jeff.
Reckman.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, having said that, what we are hoping for, given that the province will be maybe setting up another ministry, we're not sure what they're gonna do, how they're gonna implement this. But having said that, we were gonna ask Doug to consider appointing a deputy minister to the Gitxsan. It's a huge territory, 33,000 square kilometers. It's between Smithers and Terrace and north to Mesiaden and east to Daddy Lake. So it's huge. And we feel at this point, given the large Gitxsan government, which are about 48 chiefs and about 38 active chiefs, that the Gitxsan would be seeking an actual deputy minister and someone to be appointed as well from Victoria. 2 people that we'd like to see appointed. And then for the actual technical stuff, I believe you folks have jumped ahead of us, and you have Jeff Brecknell and Aaron Trowbridge. So we're pleased with that.
Right. I don't believe Jeff Recknell is actually appointed to Gitxsan as a technical lead. I believe he appointed Aaron to be the Gitxsan lead in implementing UNDRIP.
Oh, okay.
So at this point, just to confirm,
You appointed,
I did not appoint anybody. Just to confirm that Jeff has appointed Aaron Trowbridge, okay?
oh, okay. So at least you've gone some ways down the path, and we would like to work with a senior manager, whether it be Jeff or someone, as it is a huge territory. We have, we feel that the province and DFO have a long ways to catch up to us in terms of the fisheries. And then, of course, we're going to be stepping into the other arenas like mining. We see those on an incremental basis. But that's sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Right now, at least for 3 years, we want to really focus on the fisheries.
Right.
Tie that up, get it all down pat for the public, so the public will know what we're doing.
And that is, that's part of Minister Donaldson's jurisdiction is the fishery. The
Right.
mining is not, right?
Right, yeah, that's somewhere in the future anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we like to see. You said John Allen or Joy Allen?
John
John.
is our deputy minister, or sorry, yeah, is our deputy minister.
Okay. All right, so on our side of the table, we have a standing committee on government relations, and that's chaired by Dale Good and Bill Blackwater Jr. And there's four chiefs on that, as well as Brian and Vernon here. And they're prepared to deal with the process of the UNDRIP policy and work with the government on implementing the legislation.
Okay, confirm Dale
Good?
Good, okay, and Bill Blackwater Jr.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Chair.
You done? You have a comment? No? All right. Well, thank you, Troy. That is very informative, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Appreciate it on the issues on the webpage, especially as those were quite concerning to the Gitxsan chiefs. Number 6, jurisdiction, Anat, access to 2021 season. Ayok, not play with fish, not waste fish. Do you want to start that conversation, Gordon?
Yeah, we pretty well, that's been the flavor of our discussions, and we just put that on the agenda just to keep our eye on the ball. We don't want to get sidetracked. And the issue is the Gitxsan have we've lived by the standard that we need to seek permission before we go on an act. We have 79 at this point, and we cannot go on to those except our own. And if we do go on another's, we need permission. And that's the idea that we're working on with the government issuing the permits. So it's just a restatement that you're highly aware of, and that's, we're not gonna stray too far from that. So the issue is reconciling the government's authority to issue permits and licenses, which do not authorize them to trespass. They're only authorized to fish where they're allowed.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. Comments from the chiefs? Norman? Additional comments on jurisdiction?
Okay, when we're talking jurisdiction, you know, we're talking about, from your guys' point of view, we're talking about rights. And from our point of view, it's the rights that we're talking about is time immemorial rights. And there's a difference there. You guys just created, we're talking about our jurisdiction that goes back thousands of years. And from this jurisdiction, from the land that we own, we have all our practices and our traditions. And from this flows our rights. And one of the rights that we're talking about at this table is the right to say to anybody, you're not permitted to come onto an aunt. Because that's one of the main, it's a no trespass law, which we've had since time immemorial. You know, time immemorial rights are different than what Section 35 gives us, and that is, it's from the point of view of the white man. And they're trying to work our rights, their way of thinking into the way, in giving us our rights. And that is not right, because we've had these rights since time immemorial. And when I say rights, I'm talking about jurisdiction too. And one of the basic laws that we have stems from, all our laws stems from respect. Respect, as I said earlier, respect for all our animals, the fish. And we have a relationship with nature where we have respect for them, and they in turn, when they come back to us from the ocean, they give themselves up to us for our food. And this is what the government is, they're playing around with our fish by using sports and recreational fishermen. They play around with our fish. It is not a sport to us. It is our way of life and the way we feed ourselves. So all of this is under our jurisdiction, and that is what we are trying to protect. Because the way we live is that we go from generation to generation to generation, and we pass down our laws. And we would like to see a sustainable way of life, which would sustain the thousands of generations that are going to come, and that is our jurisdiction. We are going to sustain them. And the way the white man is doing this, looking after the fish, they're completely going against our laws, and there's no sustainability in the way they think. The way they've been harvesting our fish all these years is that they've been depleting it. And it all boils down to greed, money. Whereas we just take what we need. That is our jurisdiction. So, you know, there's a difference in the way we think and the way the white man thinks. So.
Thank you, Norman. There are no other comments? Again, just to reiterate, we're very tied to the land. We're very tied to the resource. We're tied to our anat. One of the things I want to throw in here is the generations that follow. Whether it be by accident, whether it be by watching what the generation did before. An example that I have is that with our anat, one of our main chiefs passed on, and his name is Hunt, and he managed our fishing site. He ruled it. He made sure no one used it. It belongs to us. And but he was a kind man at the same breath, because there's some members in our community that don't have access to a anat. Sometimes they're landlocked in their lahib. However, Hunt recognized that these members were not getting fish. We're not getting sustenance for their freezers, their smokehouses. And so Hunt saw that and gave them fish in our community. And of course, in exchange, there's different trading that happened, which is alive and well today. So the present Hunt today has tasked himself to watch and carry forward what the past Hunt used to do, and in turn looks at our members and sees that there are those that need fish for their freezers, need fish for their smokehouses, and continues that role. I find it quite unique that our people have done that, and I believe that's the way that many of our families and many of our anat do today, and they still carry that. So it just goes one generation to the next, and it continues. It provides sustenance for the Gitxsan people and the community, their neighbors, and basically in their community. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll touch on the number 7. If there's no other comments on number 6, jurisdiction, we'll proceed. And signage, I've had only the one meeting I reported at the last meeting with Roger, but I've had an email with Roger, and that Roger Rietzema, he's continued to work on wording, and once he has a draft, and then we will probably have a meeting in the very near future to look at what has been drafted up and how we can add to it, and then also look at the Simgiget's comments on viability of the signs, and at various points we've had a bit of discussion on what should be included on the different signage, where the signage should be included, and also connected to the potential synopsis that Fish and Wildlife produces and explains to the foreign people that come to BC and purchase your permits and then trespasses on our aunts. So we need to have a look at that and find ways again to work with the government on access to our aunts. So that's an ongoing process that we're working on, and we will get more information as we process that work. Number 8, crisis management team, terms of reference, commitment from all parties. Gordon, you want to touch on that one?
Yeah, I believe we have our discussions yesterday. I think we're satisfied with the direction we're going. The letter sent by Jeff Brecknall and your department. Seems that all is in order. And if there's any amendments or suggestions you have on the terms of reference, just let us know.
Okay.
Living document.
Okay.
Thank you, Gordon. And I believe that brings our meeting to close. Any
Who was it supposed to?
To us, yeah.
To you, Gordon?
Myself, Brian,
Okay.
both of us, I guess. I won't get lost. We would have went right, we would have made it to 10, to red on the nose 12 o'clock, but you didn't use up.
I
the
fell
other
short
10
of my
minutes.
time.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Okay.
So we have lunch coming in. It's being prepared as we speak. So if you have any other comments you want to share with us, or people you've hired that are going to be working with us?
Well, regretfully, I disclose that I haven't hired anybody.
Okay.
But you know, at this point, I am the tech rep for the province here, and commit to you know, addressing any technical issues that are brought forward by this team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one thing I was thinking about. When you first came in, we were talking about what's under your umbrella as far as permitting goes. And there's scientific fish collection permits and Water Act for Section 11 changes in the boat stream application? No?
No, those are Land Act permits.
Oh, okay.
So those are addressed by Bobby Love.
And then, so it's just fish collection permit and,
So yeah, scientific fish collection permits and other permits associated with the Wildlife Act.
the wildlife?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hunting, trapping, nuisance wildlife, wildlife rehab, those types of things.
So it's Lands Act?
Lands Act is the water, and it's addressed under, actually the Section 11s are under the Water Sustainability Act,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Bobby Love's. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So I entertain that we do the final comments from each of the Simgiget before we look at the next meeting date. We'll start off with Vernon.
I sure appreciate the positive response that we've received this morning, and I think we're on the right track. And in regards to fisheries, fish is part of our spiritual connection to the Creator also. We use one part of the fish if a child has a problem, to use that piece of the inside of the fish to heal the child. from his problem. So it's part of our spiritual connection to the Creator. It's a fish. That's why we respect the fish. It really bothers us to see what is happening along the beach inside our territory. Because we have a history on it, and why we don't play with fish. And it's bothersome to us that respects what the Creator has given to us for our sustenance. Here we have a very small amount of waste when we utilize the fish. The same with animals and whatnot, but we haven't gotten there yet. But the fish, it's a major sustenance. And to see it being responded by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans at the mouth of Skeena, especially when they allowed the sailors come in right at the mouth. They used to be way out at Dundas area and up to Humpback Bay to 80 Pass. Then they allow them right into the mouth of Skeena, and then that's when you see the decline. We have a fast decline after that. And this DFO still says nothing wrong with that move. But for us that utilize the fish, it's very disturbing to us to see that happen. And again, the sailors, they scraped the bottom at the mouth of the Skeena and destroyed fish habitat, minnows. You see the decline in the water level is going down also because of logging and whatnot. So hopefully with UNDRIP in place, we could help out in restoring what restoring the nature that was there to begin with, because we were taught to respect nature and fish and wildlife. And when we hunt, we set up a camp. And when we leave the camp, we leave it as natural as possible. And if we have a surplus, we hang it up on a tree for somebody that may not have what we have, like they utilize that we know where all the camps are. Sometimes we have a surplus, we hang it up on a limb and they grab it and they utilize it. So we help each other in that regards. And we've come to a point where we need to work together with the government and both federal and the provincial government. We need to work together with them so that we could restore what has been damaged in the short time since contact. There's a lot of damages. So with that, I think we're heading in the right direction in discussing our grievances. And implementing our IO, which is pretty complex. And 2020 and closer, we're all together again, just to, while we're addressing the crisis situation that we're in. We would like to see it closed until there's, until we fully address the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. Robert?
Yeah, I too would like to thank Troy for coming, because usually we have a hard time trying to get the government involved to work with us. We appreciate that, the information and the willingness to work with the Gitxsan, our precious members. But one thing I wanna say today is, while the government's doing their research, they usually take 2 or 3 years, meanwhile we're losing salmon. And I also echo what Vernon said about the Shane fishing in the mouth of Skeena. Why do they continue doing that? That affects the whole Skeena. And I know I'll be going out of boundary with this, but we don't want to see what happened to Newfoundland about the codfish. Depleted, it hasn't recovered, maybe never will. We don't want to see that happen in the Skeena. All our fish. So any help that we can get, we appreciate it, to our neighbors, First Nation neighbors, the government. If only the federals make time for us, that would be great. And we hope to continue this, like I feel too that we're going in the right direction, trying to commit to each other. And again, thank you for your time today, this morning. A bit.
Thank you, Robert.
Feel kind of sick. They basically covered it all, burning it on the bottom. How I feel personally about everything. I feel that everything's not complete. There's a lot to do yet. There's a lot more that we can work forward to. We really need to stop mismanaging is the most important. We need the fish for our future generations to come. Because pretty soon, all we'll see is pictures in the museum, and we'll be just telling our stories. From thousands of years ago, we've been telling our stories on our arnett, while our grannies were smoking our fish. And Mom passed on the knowledge and the wisdom. This is where we get our stories from. That's why Brian is saying we are tied to the land. That it's very important to listen and learn while we're in our smokehouses. Because that's where I learned when I was very young. How to hang the fish, which direction to hang the fish, the direction of the fish, so the fish will come back. And if a fish accidentally drops on the ground, that doesn't go to waste. We burn it. We burn it in the fire. And this is like everybody's saying on the table here. There's no waste. We usually keep the heads and tails to go down the coast for our crab traps, halibut. if our fish goes rotten, I still throw it in the freezer for halibut and crab trap. So it's a cycle that goes on and on and on and on. So fish to catch more food for our own. It's really important that we learned off our grandparents or mother. I have a lot of fond memories of my granny. Like, wow, I could sit here all day talking about it, but I don't have time. But I really like to thank you, Troy, for coming today. It looks like we're in a really positive direction, and the way you've been speaking this morning, it sounds really, really good. I'm glad that I'm a part of this team because we are helping our nation. And I believe this is very, very important. Thank you.
Okay, everybody basically covered the whole thing. The thing that I'd like to stress is our relationship with the land and everything on it. We're taught to respect everything that surrounds us, and the animals that sacrifice themselves to us for us to eat so that we can go on and on and on. Everything that we do is for the house and for future generations. That means to sustain the way of life for our people. And our way of life is to conserve. Everybody here spoke of it, how we conserve for the future. That means we have to have a sustainable way of life in order to sustain the thousands of generations that are going to come. And we basically have a symbiotic relationship with everything around us. And one of them is fish. We know that they come up and they sacrifice themselves to us for our food. And we in turn look after them to make sure they're protected, to make sure that our people do not waste, do not play around with them. Because all of these laws and these things called hawashus is taboo. They are meant to keep our people going for many, well, forever. So, and that is why we are here, is to make sure that our future generations are taken care of. And that applies to everything on the land. We're not going to be poisoning the land with the different things, like the way the white man does it. When I say white man, I mean, the government allows people to do things. And I'm talking about these big corporations. They come in, they swoop in, and they just wreck the land through mining, through extracting resources such as gas and oil. And they do not do it in a sustainable way. They wreck the land. They're hit and run corporations. They come in, make billions of dollars, and then they're gone. We are left on the land which is not sustainable, where our people die off. And that is not what we're here for. We're here to sustain our people. And when the government allows these big corporations to come in and poison the land, that is against our laws. So these kind of, I'm very glad that we're sitting here at this table, especially talking to you, because I know that you're very receptive to what we're saying, and you bring back the message. So it's a positive move in the right direction. So, you know, thank you.
Any comment, Robin?
Yes, a little bit off the topic, but I have a concern. Every moose hunting season up north, us First Nations are hunting as well, as you give the licenses to the hunters. Now it's just like sport fishing. All they're doing is trophy hunting. They're taking just the head and leaving the bodies there. A lot of us have seen this up north. Like definitely just trophy hunting. What a waste. Just, I see that every year and I hear about it every year, no matter what. That's just one of my concerns about the hunting.
Can I follow up with that, Robin? When you see that, do you report it?
Well, I hear about it and then I see pictures of it.
Right.
I'm not actually there. I wish they would report it.
Right. So BC has regulation to say that that is illegal and that is not allowed, and we don't support that. But the only way we can enforce it is through a reporting opportunity. And when something like that is reported, I can assure you that it is investigated by our conservation officer service, that they actually do an investigation and they act on every single one of those reports. And so the key and the message to take home is, if you see something illegal, whether it's hunting or fishing or waste disposal or something like that, report it so that the province can actually do something about it and hold those people who are doing those things accountable to that. Because clearly through our regulations, you know, we've made it very clear that we don't support those actions and we're ready to enforce, you know, where we can. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. The last, number 8, is a date for the next meeting. How does your calendar look?
January 16th? Too far? 25th of December?
January 1st.
No. We'll be dancing there, Bob.
Oh, 6th is when you open again.
Elvis Presley.
Right?
Okay,
You open again on the 6th.
Yep, we're open on the 6th.
Yeah.
I can assure you that I am completely unavailable until the 10th.
Oh.
After this.
10?
Well, up to and including the 10th, let's just say that.
Okay.
And you
13th.
still always 10 minutes.
11th, 12th, and 13th, we're busy here.
Oh, okay. 15th.
13th, we're meeting. Doug, you guys wanna meet Doug or meet with Troy?
No, that's.
No, that's in December.
This January.
January.
Oh, I'm looking at December. Sorry.
You've been doing
So 13th is available,
Yeah,
as far as I know.
13th, 15th, and 16th.
I have no
We have
conflicts.
jurisdiction on the 14th.
Yeah, we're gonna, Chiefs meeting on the 14th.
January?
Yeah.
Oh, the 15th, I'm in Prince Rupert with Malacala.
Okay, 13th.
So 13th or 14th works for me.
The standing committee is on at 14th.
Sounds like the 13th.
Yeah.
13th?
Thursday.
14th, or 13th for me.
13th, is that okay with you, Elaine?
I'm thinking the 16th.
16th easier to handle?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, either 13th or 16th.
Uh,
16th is good.
I'm still in Prince Rupert.
Oh,
So the 15th and 16th, I'm in Prince Rupert.
Oh, okay.
13th.
13th,
Okay, 13th.
There's, what about the 17th?
10.
17th works for me, yep.
10 o'clock.
17th?
13th, right?
Yeah.
13th, got it.
17 works better for Elaine.
Okay, 17th is better for you, Elaine.
And you?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good too, yep.
17th.
17th.
10 o'clock?
Okay, 17th, eh?
That's on 17th.
Next CMT meeting. So January 17th is the next meeting. 10 o'clock.
12.
10 o'clock.
In this office.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's ready to let the judge.
So,
Tuesday, 17th.
You guys make up your mind.
Cake.
Oh, yeah, lunch is ready.
Oh, I also want to thank the communication team for broadcasting this. All of this has been broadcasted live.
Good job.
So, so thank you for your comments and sharing. So we're